today for lawn care and landscaping as far as Iowa sales tax is concerned. We're going to get started here just momentarily. I think Dan had a few announcements to make, so I'll let him go ahead and do that, and then we'll get started.
All right, thanks, Terry. I just want to welcome everybody to the webinar topic today. Appreciate you taking the time to learn a little bit here with us. So I work with the UNI Center for Business Growth and Innovation, and we do quite a bit of work with entrepreneurial startups and different things. And I wanted to mention a couple of classes that I thought may be pertinent to the group here. One is a QuickBooks class. Every fall we teach a QuickBooks class here. We reduce the cost significantly. It's only $25 for the 3-session course. And it is going to be on September 20th, 22nd, and 27th. If you have interest in that course, just maybe type a message into the Q&A box, or otherwise I think our contact information will be provided at the end, but I wanted to make mention of that. And then there's a couple of SBA courses that are coming up as well. And so I will maybe get that information put into the message bar so that you can all see that. As I mentioned, we've got quite a few things that we do for entrepreneurs. One of them is this great partnership with the Department of Revenue, getting their information about tax and sales tax and those processes out to everybody. So we're happy to have Terry with us today. Grateful for this partnership. You want to get going, Terry?
You bet. We'll go ahead and jump right in. As Dan said, welcome everyone. It's good to be here today. Nice to see everybody. I see some familiar names signed up, so very good. We'll get rolling here. Get on the right screen. Here we go. Whoops, click on the right one. All righty. Just to step back for a second. If you've been to class before, we've touched on this, but if not, just a quick review for you. When it comes to Iowa sales taxes, what is taxable in Iowa? Well, Iowa law basically says all tangible personal property is taxable unless there's a specific exemption that's been written into the Iowa code. Also, something else that we do, when it comes to sales of tangible personal property, taxation is the rule. Exemption is the exception to the rule. And I know today we're here to talk about more of a service, although there can be a sale of tangible personal property as well. When it comes to services, exemption is the rule. So services are exempt from tax unless specifically listed as being taxable in the Iowa code. And what services might those be? Well, we do have a listing. On our website, I've got the link posted up here for you. Hopefully you can see that. We do have a listing of taxable services. This is one of our publications from our website. And it's just basically, it's a laundry list. It goes down and tells all of the various services and labor that are subject to Iowa sales tax. So that's something if you're interested in. If any of our accounting folks are here, that's a good publication to take a look at, not only for the lawn care, landscaping folks, but other businesses as well. A couple of services that are on that list would include lawn care and landscaping. So that's what we're going to talk about here today. These services are subject to sales tax. We've got exceptions too, and we'll go through some of that as we go throughout the webinar here today over the noon hour. First of all, we're going to start off, we're going to talk about lawn care services. And we've got a little picture of somebody mowing a design into a lawn here, just to get us on the to get us started. And lawn care, what does that entail? Well, that can entail any of these things. If we're doing something to make the lawn look nice, chances are that's going to be under the taxable services of lawn care. We're talking about things mowing, any type of trimming, watering. We're putting down some grass seed, maybe in some bare spots. You know, we're killing some moles or some other undesirable things that you don't want to have in the yard. This is all considered part of the taxable service of lawn care. So again, this is something that as long as the customer is taxable, which we'll spend a little more time on that here in a little bit, as long as the customer is taxable, this is a taxable service. It's going to require a sales tax permit.
Seeding and sodding of new construction would be?
The seeding, we'll touch on the new construction bit here after a little while.
Sorry.
None of our services that are on or connected with new construction are subject to tax. But again, I'll expand on that in a little while.
All right.
All right. Dan's always ahead of the curve
I'm
here.
trying, you know. I don't want to steal the thunder, though.
Not a problem. Basically, the first thing we have to look at here is what is a lawn. Every piece of ground is not necessarily a lawn, okay? Some things that are considered to be lawns would include cemetery grounds. You know, most cemeteries, they mow those on a regular basis to keep them looking nice. Golf courses, mowed all the time to keep them looking sharp. Parks, your lawn surrounding your office or maybe your residential home. I think we get a fairly good idea of what's considered a lawn. I know this summer in particular, it seems like we've had a lot of rain, and it seems like all I've done is mow grass this summer. Usually it browns out here sometime in July or August, but that has not occurred this year. So we've been mowing a lot of grass. Again, as I said a few minutes ago, lawn care service is taxable unless the customer is exempt for some reason, okay? And
So a lot of cemeteries are that way, correct?
a lot of cemeteries, but we've got a few exceptions too, and I'll touch on that more in a few minutes.
All right.
You're doing good. What is not a lawn? Some of these things are not considered to be a lawn. You know, a ditch that's just overgrown that somebody may mow once in a while, that's not considered to be a lawn for purposes of sales tax. Any type of vacant lot, you know, it just sits there, it's empty. Railroad right-of-way, not considered a lawn. Any isolated patch of grass or weeds. If this is something, you know, the city says, hey, you've got to mow those once or twice a year just to keep them from getting totally out of control, those things are not considered lawns. Most people, you know, we consider a lawn like your lawn at home. You usually mow that on a regular basis to try to keep things looking nice. So not every piece of dirt, not every piece of ground is considered a lawn. So the examples I gave here would include things that are not a lawn. Again, stepping back to what we mentioned a couple minutes ago, not everybody is taxable, okay? There can be some customers that are exempt from tax, and some of the most common ones we do have listed here. Governmental entities, say for instance that maybe somebody mows for the city, could be possibly, maybe they mow for a township or some other governmental entity. Governmental entities are, generally speaking, they are exempt from tax on their purchases, which would include the purchase of lawn care services. So they would not be taxable. Public schools as well. Your schools, they're a governmental entity. They're not going to be taxable if you mow the school grounds. That would be an exempt customer as well. Your private nonprofit educational institutions, obviously your non-public schools, we would exempt these as well, because part of the purchases for educational purposes include keeping up the grounds, keeping up the facilities, and so they would not be taxable either. And by law, nonprofit hospitals, hospices, museums, these are examples of other different entities that do not have to pay sales tax, again, by Iowa statute. So if any of you are in the lawn care business and you do mow for some of these customers, they're not going to be taxable. They should provide you with a sales tax exemption certificate, so that documents in your records why you did not tax them in case you're ever audited by the department. I did mention a few nonprofits in the previous slide, and a question comes up, well, aren't nonprofits exempt from Iowa tax? Well, no, they are not automatically exempt from Iowa tax just because they are a nonprofit. Some nonprofits are exempt from tax, but many are not. In fact, most of them are taxable, and some examples of that would be what we have on the slide here would be a church. Most charitable organizations, they're subject to tax on their purchases, and the same goes for any type of social clubs as well. They are taxable. Nonprofit, yes, they don't pay income taxes, but when they're making purchases for their own use, their own benefit, such as lawn care, that is a service that's going to be taxable. If any of you do deal with nonprofit organizations, we have a publication on our website. I'll give you the web address and show you what the web page looks like here toward the end of the webinar today. but we have a specific publication for nonprofit entities. So that would provide some good information for you if you do deal with nonprofits. But just remember, nonprofits are not automatically exempt from tax. Some of them are, and I mentioned some in the previous slide, but not all of them. So something to keep in mind. Does everybody got to collect sales tax when they're doing lawn care work for taxable customers? Well, maybe. Generally, yes. However, there is an exception. If we have a situation where the owner is the only one providing the services, they are a full-time student, and their total gross receipts for the calendar year is less than $5,000, they do not have to collect tax. I think the concept here is so that the Department of Revenue is out looking for every kid that's mowing the neighbor's lawn, okay? If they are a full-time student, making less than $5,000 a year, there is a specific exemption that's considered to be a casual sale, and they do not have to collect tax. If you've got a young person who is a full-time student, and they've got 6 lawnmowers going, and they've got a couple people helping them mow lawns, and they do $20,000 worth of business in the summer, that's a business that is taxable. Again, we just look at the amount of work that they're doing. If it's just the student doing the work, then they have to be a full-time student.
How about this, Terry? If they're doing $5,000 worth, $4,500 worth of lawn mowing and $1,500 worth of seeding work, how do you?
If we're getting into the seeding type of work, if it is for new construction or something, that's not going to be taxable anyway.
No.
But if they're doing seeding, like they're mowing my lawn, and then I've got a few bare spots, so they're going to go out. That's all considered to be part of lawn care service. And so since the total's over $5,000, it's going to be taxable.
Okay, so it's an umbrella. Okay.
Yep, that it is. Because all of those things, seeding and doing the things that I mentioned several slides ago, is all part of lawn care services.
Gotcha.
So, all righty, good deal. Let's see. Yeah, we've got a question up here. It looks like if you're paid to mow a ditch or a vacant lot, does it then become taxable? No, that's not going to be taxable, and the reason being for that, it's not considered a lawn. And again, a ditch or a vacant lot, generally speaking, that's not something that's mowed every week. It's not something that's groomed. This is something that is just mowed once in a while, just maybe because there's a city ordinance or something. It's not a lawn that's kept in mowed condition, so that would not be taxable. Now again, if you're mowing it every week, then it sounds like they're more treating it as a lawn. They want it to be mowed. That's a different story. But generally speaking, these vacant lots, these ditches and things that don't get mowed, but just on an infrequent basis, that's not a taxable service. All righty. We're going to try here and do one of our quiz questions. If you've ever been to one of my webinars before, you'll know that we always do some quiz questions to see if you're paying attention. Just a second here. Let me get over and I will see if I can launch this poll for us. I'm mowing grass. Hopefully you can see that. I'm mowing grass at a church-owned cemetery. Do I need to collect Iowa sales tax? And if you would take a minute and answer the poll, this is just a simple yes or no.
It worked.
It is working so far. Good
Nice
deal.
work, Patrick.
Looks like we're doing pretty good on that. We'll give you just another few seconds here to go ahead and take the quiz. Looks like we're doing pretty good on it. We're mowing grass again at a church-owned cemetery. All righty, looks like we've got quite a few answers in, so we're going to go ahead. I'm going to end the poll. I'm going to shut this down. And all righty, and the answer to this one, if I can get back over here again, here we go. The answer in this situation is going to be yes. A church is a taxable entity, okay, and a cemetery is considered to be a lawn. Now, some of you might be thinking, well, wait a minute, there's a cemetery, that doesn't pay tax that we mow for. What we look at in that situation is who owns it. If this is something that owns if this is owned by a city or some governmental entity, myself, I know for a fact townships have some cemeteries that they oversee. And a township is a governmental entity. If that township pays someone to mow around that cemetery, that is an exempt transaction because the cemetery owner, in this case, a governmental entity, is exempt from tax. But a church is taxable. Okay, we're going to switch gears here just a little bit. I'm going to jump over to the landscaping end of things. Landscaping has some other issues that can possibly be involved. Depends on what you do, though. Okay, first of all, we've got to give you a definition. And as in most things here with sales tax, we've got definitions. If you are doing something where you are arranging or modifying the natural condition of land for public or private use or enjoyment, this is considered to be taxable. Before I go on with this, I'm going to step back. I see we do have a question. It says, so if I have a customer that I charge for mowing and the total for the year is less than $5,000, I should not be charging sales tax. That's only going to apply if the person providing the service is a full-time student and they are the only one providing that service. So if you're a lawn care business and you're getting paid to mow lawns for people, just because the customer paid less than $5,000 for the year does not exempt them. If it is a student that is performing the service, they're the only one performing a service, it's less than $5,000 a year in gross receipts, then it's going to be exempt from tax. Again, think of the neighborhood kid that's mowing lawns. That's what we're talking about here.
And if you, as a professional non-student, mow $3,000 worth of lawns in the year, you're supposed to be paying tax.
That is a taxable transaction. That's correct, Dan.
Regardless if it's one lawn or 10 lawns. Or
that's absolutely correct. Yep. All righty. So again, we're back to the landscaping. We're going to give you a few examples of some things that could be considered landscaping that would be taxable. If we're doing some type of excavating work, and you notice we do have a few photos in here to kind of give you an idea of what we're talking about. If we're planting some things, pruning, putting down some sand, some rocks, some wood chips, those types of things. Again, we're arranging them around to make things look nice. These are some examples of taxable landscaping services. So this is something that you do need to be concerned with if you do this type of work.
Block work too?
We're going to get to the blocks.
All right.
Yep.
All right.
Dan's ahead of the curve here on me.
All right.
We're going to get to some of the other things that a landscaper would do. Right now, for purposes of this discussion, we're just doing things with like seed and sod and that type of stuff. We're going to get into the other things here in just a little bit. Some things that a landscaper may do that are not taxable. This would include any services performed by a landscape architect. If you are a landscape architect and you have to be registered, we've got Iowa Code Section 544B2. If you are a landscape architect, services are separately stated and billed. This is not a taxable service. There's an exemption for that in the Iowa Code. Also, and Dan kind of mentioned this a little bit earlier, if we're doing some type of work, whether it be lawn care or landscaping, and it is in connection with some new construction, reconstruction, alteration, expansion, or remodeling, that's going to be exempt from tax. So what am I saying here? If I build a new house, and as part of the construction of my new house, we have the landscaper comes in and plants a few shrubs and some trees and puts some mulch down and those types of things when they're finishing up my house. Since that work is done in connection with the construction of my home, that labor is going to be exempt in that situation. Okay. Question number 2. Let's see if we can get this one pulled up here. Go this way. I think if I click on this one. All righty, we're going to do another poll here just to see if everybody's tracking with me here. In this situation, we've got construction of a new building that was completed in January. If a person is hired in April to do the landscaping, do I collect tax? We'll give you a little bit of time on this one. Again, I mentioned in the previous slide that any landscaping work or those types of things that are connected with the new construction, they're going to qualify for exemption. So what do you think? House built in January, landscape work done in April? That sounds pretty reasonable to me. We'll give you just a few more seconds here. Okay, looks like we're doing all right on this. I'm going to shut the poll down here momentarily.
Terry, after you click on that, you can.
I can share the results too. Okay. Looks like we did okay on this one. I'll share the results with you. There you go. Looks like we had 81% of people answered no for this one, and that is correct. In this situation, again, in January, you can't do a whole lot of landscaping in Iowa, generally speaking. So April, hopefully things have thawed out by April and you can get in there and do that type of work. So we would say no sales tax on this one, on the service of the landscaping, because it's still connected with that new construction. Hopefully that makes sense to you. Now we're going to just jump over one more time, and we're going to just put another little spin on this.
Is there a statute of limitations on that where you can no longer classify it as?
No, there's not any. This is not set in stone.
Okay.
Here we go. Let's put the next poll up here.
Okay.
Let's do that one. And in this particular situation, we're going to cover just an example, just as Dan has mentioned. In this particular one, we got the house was done in May. Okay, the landscaper is hired to come in September. Do they collect sales tax? The house was finished in May.
Sure.
So we're going to give you a minute here to answer the questions. Looks like you're getting your answers in, and then we'll discuss this. This kind of goes back to what Dan was mentioning. Is there a set number of days or anything like that? And the answer is no, there is not. Basically, what we would do is we would look at this on a case-by-case basis to just look at the circumstances. Now, in this situation, I'm going to end the poll here just a couple more seconds. Go ahead and get your answers in, and then we'll have a little discussion on this one. All righty, I'm going to shut the poll off, and I'm going to put the results. This one's kind of torn here. This is one. There we go. In this particular situation, this is going to be considered taxable, and the reason for that is basically the construction was done in May. All right. The weather is, generally speaking, is nice enough sometime during the summer that you can get the landscaping done. The fact that you don't come back in until September to get it done, we're going to say that that's the construction's done. It's no longer related to it. Now, I'm sure you can probably come up with an example and say, well, in this year, though, we had the floods and the river didn't go back down until July, and then it was wet and it was mucky, and we couldn't, things didn't dry out until September when I came in there. Yeah, okay. We could possibly go for that. Again, in an audit situation, this would be a case-by-case basis. They would look at the circumstances to see what's going on. But just generally speaking, house is done in May. You should have gotten the landscaping done before September, unless there's some extenuating circumstances. So in this situation, I'm going to have to say this is a yes, this is a taxable situation. So let me roll over here once. We'll shut these results off. All righty. And then we aren't quite ready for the next question yet, but that's the way that we would look at it. One thing, if you're not sure, it's probably better to charge tax. If the customer believes they're exempt, they can always come to the Department of Revenue and get a claim for refund. If they are in fact exempt from tax, we'll gladly do that for them if they submit the claim for refund. Alrighty, I wanted to talk a little bit about materials. We've been talking about labor here, but I wanted to switch gears and talk about materials as far as the landscaping and things are concerned. We've got a couple different materials here depending on the type of work that you're dealing with. The first thing here I want to talk about, which we have up on the slide, are what's known as landscape materials. Okay, some examples of that, we've got them up here on the slide. You know, sod, trees, shrubs, wood chips, rocks, similar things like that you know, are placed around shrubs and things around your house or around your business. These types of things are considered to be landscape materials. These can be purchased tax exempt for resale if they are doing a few things here, which we're going to get into momentarily. But these are landscape materials which the landscaper can buy tax exempt, and we'll expand on that here just momentarily. I am going to step back here. We do have a couple questions. I'm going to see if we can sort these out for some folks here. The first question, a lot of shrubs are not paid to be planted until fall. I think this could affect taxability. Could this be a case-by-case basis? Shrubs are not to be planted until fall. I see what you're saying. So the house gets completed in May, and then these shrubs, because of the fact that you don't want them to die, the time to plant them is maybe in the fall. I'm not going to go that far today. This is Barbara. Why don't you send me a note on that? I'll give you some contact information at the end here. I'm gonna have to give that one a little bit of thought. We can look into it. You can put that in an email if you would, and I'll put that information up here at the end of the webinar today. Let's see, if we have someone that is exempt, like a governmental entity, and they hire firm A to do the work. Firm A subcontracts firm B to do the landscaping. I charge firm A for the work. I did include sales tax. Firm A pays the bill less the sales tax since it's for a governmental entity. What is correct? With or without sales tax for firm B? Okay, so you are firm B, if I'm understanding you correctly. You purchase your landscape materials tax exempt. You do some landscape work, and you bill firm A in this situation. Well, those transactions, that is a resale transaction. The work that you did is for firm A, who is reselling your landscaping services and the landscape materials to their customer. So transaction between firm A and firm B would be a resale transaction, so no sales tax. Firm A then, when they bill the customer, they would either collect tax from the customer if the customer is taxable, or they would not charge them tax if the customer is exempt, such in this example of a governmental entity. So if you're with me on that, Denise, transaction between you and firm A, no sales tax because of resale. We have another question here, landscaping for a public school district tax exempt. That would be exempt. That was one of the examples I gave earlier for entities that are exempt from tax. A public school district would be one of them. Okay, good questions. Good questions. So let's go ahead and move on here. We're still talking about materials, and I'm talking about landscape materials. In order to purchase landscape materials tax exempt, if you're the landscaper, in order to purchase some tax exempt, you've got to make sure that you're itemizing these things out on the invoice. This is part of our rule. This is the specifics of the rule that tells when you can purchase things for resale when they are connected with a service, such as landscaping. So if you're going to itemize these things out, they have to be in a definite quantity that has the amount that is sold in a specific price. So you can say, like, we're going to sell you 4 oak trees. Okay, 4 oak trees, and these trees are $100 a piece. If you're itemizing that on the invoice to the customer, you're spelling that out to the customer, you can purchase those oak trees tax exempt for resale. When you bill the customer, you will collect tax from the customer at that time. So again, unless there's something else going on here, such as connected with new construction, when it comes to landscaping work, sales tax is charged for both the materials and the labor. So again, but in order for you, the landscaper, to buy these materials tax exempt, you've got to be itemizing that information out, putting it out on the invoice to the customer saying, hey, 4 oak trees, $100 a piece. That's just an example. Has to be in an identifiable quantity and with a price per quantity on there as well. If you're going to purchase something for resale, which means tax exempt, you must provide the supplier with an Iowa sales tax exemption certificate. What I've got up here on the screen right now is a sales tax exemption certificate. This is something that you can get from our website. Again, I'll give you the web information here towards the end of the webinar. But you can print this off, you fill it out, it must be completed, and you provide this to the supplier. The supplier keeps this form in their records in case the department ever audits them someday. This is their proof, this is their documentation as to why they did not charge you tax for a sale that occurred to you. So just be aware that if you are claiming exemption, you've got to complete one of these for the seller. Okay. A couple of examples here, just to give you an idea of what I'm talking about, just to make sure. In this particular situation, these examples, they are billing the materials for resale. They are putting down the labor, in this case, on the left-hand side, and on the right-hand side, they've got a listing of, say, some chemicals, some fertilizer, those types of things. They've got quantities, they've got amounts that are spelled out. This is just a simple invoice, just for an example. In these situations, the materials can be purchased tax exempt for resale. Like I say, the object is here, you're going to collect tax from the customer when you bill the customer. I've got another real simple example too, just to show you. In this example, the one on the left, since this person is itemizing their materials, they're saying, hey, we got some labor here involved in this situation. We've also got some grass seed that we provided as well, 20 pounds. And it looks like it's $1.50 a pound, if my math is correct on that. In this situation, this lawn care service on the left-hand side, they can buy the seed tax exempt for resale. When they bill the customer, they'll collect the tax. On the right-hand side, we've got Bill over here. He's just kind of lumping everything together. He's not itemizing out any quantities of any tangible personal property. He just has it all lumped under mowing, trimming, seeding, $80 total. He cannot purchase his materials tax exempt for resale, but he still collects tax from the customer. Okay? So in order for you to be able to buy the materials tax exempt, you've got to itemize them out, identifiable quantity, price per quantity on the invoice to the customer. So I'm going to back up here. I see we do have a question. I'm going to back up and see if we can't straighten that one out for you. On what you're saying right now, what is, I paid the sales tax at the vendor, and then I itemize everything on the invoice and tax the customer. How do I report that on the sales tax return so I don't pay tax twice? I paid sales tax already. I don't want to pay tax when I file the return. Okay. If you did pay tax to the vendor when you purchased the materials, and then you itemize everything out, you put down X amount of quantity times X amount of dollars per quantity on the invoice to the customer, you still must collect tax from the customer. But when you complete your quarterly sales tax return, and hopefully you can picture this because I don't have a blank return here to show you, but you're going to have a gross sale. That's going to have your sale price of the whole invoice, the labor, the materials. That's going to be in gross sales on line 1 on the quarterly return. Line 4 is for deductions and exemptions. We're on the quarterly return still. And it would go under other. And you would put down there your cost of materials that you paid sales tax on. Okay? Now, the only people that can do this, what this is going to do is lower down the amount of tax that you remit to the department. The only people that can do this are only those who paid tax up front on the materials when they bought them. Then they itemized everything out on the invoice to the customer, definable quantity, price per quantity. If they do that, they can take a deduction on the quarterly sales tax return. What you should do in that situation, instead of, if you want to keep taking the deduction each quarter, that's fine. But what you can do is provide an exemption certificate to the vendor and don't pay sales tax up front. That would make things a little bit easier when it comes time to fill out your quarterly return. But either way is acceptable. So I think that that takes care of that issue, hopefully, for you. All righty, here's the other thing that we get into. When retailers fail to itemize landscape materials separately from exempt labor, the total bill is taxable. So what am I saying here? Let's say that you're doing some landscaping connected with new construction. As we already said, any work connected with new construction, the labor is tax exempt. Okay, so when you got a landscaper and they're putting down labor and materials, they would only collect tax on just the materials. They would not collect it on the labor. However, If it's just all lumped together, if it just says landscaping work, it's going to be taxable. So you're going to have to collect tax from the customer in that situation. In order to avoid that situation, you're going to have to itemize out the invoice. So it depends. A lot of things depend on how things are invoiced. I'm stepping back again. We've got another question, and hopefully we can shed some light on that for you. Looks like we've got Vicki here. It says, so I'm the landscaper, and my client hires me to install a new backyard patio, fire pit, all of that good stuff. So I have to itemize out the bill. I can't just say $10,000 for backyard patio. Let's hold off on that for just a minute. That gets into more of the construction end of things. And Vicki, I've got a few slides coming up for that. So let's back off of that one. And then after I go through my few slides here coming up, if you still have a question, then jump in if you would. So, okay. Again, we've been talking about landscape materials in this situation. Time for another quiz question here. And let me jump this one up here. All right. Here is our poll. I don't separately itemize materials on my bill to the customer. Can I buy those materials exempt from sales tax? So go ahead and plug your answer in there if you would.
Terry, how do you handle equipment rental that many landscapers would maybe pass on?
Okay.
Are you going to cover that?
Good question, Dan. I can take that here. We'll give you another minute or so on the poll. Generally speaking, equipment rental is a taxable transaction in Iowa.
Okay.
However, we do have an exemption for equipment that is rented to be used in connection with new construction. So it depends what you're using the equipment for. If it's used in connection with a new construction job, you can rent it tax exempt. If it's just used, your lawnmower conked out and you've got jobs to do while yours is in the shop, so you rent another lawnmower, that's going to be taxable to you.
Okay.
So it does depend. Okay, I'm going to end the poll here. Looks like everybody's getting their answer in with that. So I will end the poll, and then here are the results of the poll. And I'm going to go back over here again if I do this right. Here we are. Can I buy those materials exempt in this situation? I did not separately itemize them on my bill to the customer. In this case, no, you cannot. You have to separately itemize the bill on the invoice to the customer in order to buy the materials. Again, we're talking landscape materials, tax exempt. I gave the example a little bit ago about putting in 4 oak trees. It has to be spelled out like that. So if it's not, you do not get the resale exemption when you purchase the materials. Okay, we're gonna put that one off here. And I think we've got one more poll left in just a little bit.
You want to take Nathan's question too?
Yep, let's go ahead and do that. Nathan, I thought landscaping is taxable. Why does the slide mention exempt labor? Okay, Nathan, good question. Again, landscaping is a taxable service. However, if it is connected with new construction, we've given a couple of examples of that, that exempts the service of landscaping. So again, if I build my new house, Nathan comes over and does the landscaping, and it all took place in the month of July for this discussion here. Since we did the landscaping work connection with building my brand new house, there would be no tax due on the labor in that situation. We've got another new construction question. On new construction, the only thing not taxable is labor. I should charge sales tax on the shrubs, plants, sod, etc. That is correct. We're only talking about landscaping materials here right now, and that is correct. If you are doing new construction, you should charge tax on the shrubs, the tangible personal property that you sold. Good questions. Again, we're going to move on here. Landscape contractors, and I think, Vicki, this is going to get into some of what you were asking about here. Landscapers today do a lot of things besides just, plant a few shrubs and put down some mulch. There's a lot of things that landscapers do. Can they be contractors? Yes, they can. Being a construction contractor means they are providing labor and materials to build a structure. So they've got to be careful with what they're doing. Here is how we treat things if they're acting as a contractor. And this is going to get into some of your some of your area of question here, Vicki. If you're going to build a structure, and some examples we've got up here on the slide, and this is exact things that you were asking about here just momentarily, a little bit ago. We got some patios, fire pits, outdoor kitchens. We've got driveways. We've got decks. We've got fences. All of these things are going to become a structure. These are going to be part of the real property. These things, this type of work falls under construction type of work. Okay. So there's a little bit difference in how this is treated as far as your materials go. Examples of building materials. Again, we talked about landscape materials earlier, your trees, your shrubs, etc., mulch and those types of things. But what we're talking about now is building materials. We're talking about brick. We're talking about lumber. We're talking about stone, pavers, these types of things. These are all considered to be building materials, and these fall under the construction rules. I'm going to stop for just a second. I see we have a quick question here on snow removal services. Snow removal is not one of our taxable services, okay? If you remember a little bit ago, toward the beginning, I said we do have a publication that lists what services are taxable. Snow removal is not one of them. So that's not going to be a taxable service. What about being tax exempt on equipment rentals for snow removal? That's going to be a taxable. If you rent a piece of equipment to use for snow removal purposes, that's going to be a taxable transaction. Again, I suppose technically you could have maybe a situation where it's related to new construction. Maybe there's a foot of snow that gets dumped on the construction site, so you have to come in and do some snow removal. Maybe. But I'm just going to say, generally speaking, if you're renting equipment to use for snow removal, that's going to be taxable. Again, good questions. When it comes to acting as a contractor, so if you're doing these things, you're building retaining walls, you're putting in a patio, you're building a fence, you're building a deck, these types of things, you're acting as a construction contractor, okay? And as a construction contractor, Iowa law says you are the final consumer of those building materials. So what does that mean? It means that you must pay tax on those building materials when you buy them. So again, I was saying earlier, this gets a little bit confusing. You have to look at what materials you're buying. You can purchase your landscape materials tax exempt, assuming you're itemizing that on the invoice to the customer, as we discussed previously. But if you're buying construction materials, you've got to pay tax on those. This is just part of your cost of materials. It's included in the bid price to the customer for this project. No sales tax is charged to the customer for labor or materials. So we're back to Vicki again. She's doing a lot of things that sound to me construction related. She is putting in a patio. She's putting in a fire pit. She's putting in a patio and these types of things. If she is doing that type of work and she bills them $10,000 for their backyard patio, there is no sales tax on that. However, she had to pay sales tax on all of the materials used to construct that patio. Now, one thing here that she didn't ask, but what if you're doing some of both? What if you're putting in a backyard patio, a fire pit, those types of things, and then you're planting some trees and shrubs around it? The way to do things properly is to, or maybe I won't say properly, it's a little more clearer if you itemize that out and you spell it out and say, okay, well, the patio work over here, that was $10,000. The landscape over here, we had $2,000 worth of trees and shrubs and things, and we've got those all itemized out, and then we've got the labor listed here. In that situation, we would only tax just the materials in that situation. The landscape materials, the trees, the shrubs, those things. We wouldn't tax any of the patio materials because you already should have paid tax on them, and that's just included in your price to the customer. And why didn't we tax the landscape labor? Because it was connected with the construction of this patio. You did the landscaping around this new patio, fire pit, etc. That's why we did not tax the labor for the landscaping, connected with new construction. So hopefully that clears things up for you, Vicki. If not, you can always shoot me an email. Again, I'll give you an email address here at the end.
It's more complicated than it seems.
It definitely is. It definitely is.
When we first started this webinar, I thought, okay, I'm mowing lawns. I either charge tax or I don't. But obviously,
If that's all you do is mow lawns, it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
But as I'm sure you guys know out there that are attending today, many times you do more than just mow a lawn. All righty. Before we go on to the quiz question, I'll let you look at it. Well, I'll go ahead and put the poll up, and then we'll take the question. All righty, here we go. We're going to go ahead and put this up. I'll let you read through that while I take the question here. What if we have a retail store in Nebraska and building a small retaining wall in Iowa? We purchase all material tax-free. Can we just pay use tax on the quarterly return to cover the sales tax on materials? Okay, good question. You're coming from Nebraska. If you brought those materials with you from Nebraska and you paid no tax on them, yep, you can. There would be Iowa use tax due on those materials. You didn't pay any tax to Nebraska. You brought them over here to Iowa for use. We would expect use tax due. And yeah, I'm okay with that. Put it on your quarterly return. Put it under the goods consumed line on the Iowa tax return. That's fine. Since it is a retaining wall, again, you're not charging any tax to the customer. All taxes that you paid were just included in your price to the customer, and you would not collect any tax from the customer. So I think we've got that one taken care of. If you don't collect tax when you purchase it and you are building a patio, but you charge tax on the marked up patio materials, can you collect taxes then? Okay. I think what Jody is saying, what if we didn't pay tax on materials and we do the work and then we're going to bill the customer? No, you should not. You cannot. That's not the proper way to handle the situation when you're building a patio. In that situation, you are acting as a construction contractor. You must pay tax up front, either a sales tax or a use tax, depending on circumstances of the transaction, included in the price to your customer. Collect no tax from your customer. Alrighty, here we're back to the poll. I'm going to shut the poll off here real quick, and I'm going to put the results up there for you. In this situation, we have a contract to build a retaining wall, and I think we've kind of discussed this one a few times here. Can I purchase the stones that I use to construct the wall tax-free for resale? In this situation, the answer is going to be no. Because you are considered to be a construction contractor, Iowa law says you are the final consumer of those materials, and so you must pay Iowa tax on those up front. You cannot purchase them tax exempt. If you did purchase them tax exempt for whatever reason, we're going to expect some use tax on them. So I think the example we had of bringing the materials in from Nebraska where no tax was paid, Iowa use tax would still be due. All right, let me get this poll off of here once. There we go. I think that takes care of our polls. Let's see here. We have another question. We'll take that before we proceed here. A homeowner hired me to put in a patio and fire pit. Existing home, not new construction. I do not charge sales tax. That is correct. The patio and fire pit, putting that in, it did not exist before. You are building a structure. That is considered to be new construction. Pay tax on those materials up front, included in your price to the customer. Collect no tax from the customer on labor or materials in that situation. Anonymous person, can we print off the slides with your answers? I don't know if that's an option under this.
We'll find that out before the end of the
Yeah, we'll find
session.
out. Dan and Patrick here will they'll take a look at it and see if that's possible. I don't know if it is. Okay, let's jump back down here to our presentation here. What we're getting to now, we're kind of wrapping up here. We're getting toward the end of things. What I have up here is our Iowa Tax Research Library. I don't know if any of you have ever looked at this before. And this slide is a little bit outdated because we just updated our Tax Research Library a week ago. So it looks different. One thing I just wanted to point out to you with this is if you ever have a question about something and you can't find the answer in our publications, you're not sure, one place you can go and do a little bit of looking is our tax research library. There is a link when you get on this that you can click and enter a keyword to do a search. You could maybe put in something like lawn care, and it will show some information that's out there related to lawn care or landscaping, for example. So this is a tool that may prove useful for you, not just in lawn care and landscaping business, but any type of business. If we have some accountants that are participating here today, you can find information there on income taxes and other things as well. So just a good tool for you to use. I know myself, if you email a question in and I can't find the answer, I'm not sure about it, the first thing I do is go to the tax research library. Many times I can find something there. It's a tool that we use internally, and you have full access to it as well. So it's kind of a nice feature.
Terry, one question
ahead,
that we maybe didn't get to that I did notice as we were reading here was one on irrigation equipment.
Okay.
And irrigation services. Do you want to touch on that? I know that often goes hand in hand with a lot of what landscapers are offering for services.
Sure, I can step back just a little bit. People putting in an irrigation system. And what I'm talking about here, we aren't just running the hose out and hooking the sprinkler up.
Right.
We're talking about, we're digging up your yard, we're trenching in some pipe with a sprinkler system and some different things along those lines. We've always treated that as construction as well. Okay. And with that, again, you acting as the contractor must pay tax on the cost of those materials up front. You have that tax included in your price to the customer for the materials, and you do the work. You do not charge any tax to the customer for labor and materials. So again, that's treated as a construction contract. I see before I talk about our website and things, I see we do have a couple more questions. We've got another one here. What if one of our vendors will not charge us sales tax? We've told them several times that we're not exempt. We have been paying sales tax. Is there anything else we can do? No, if you call and talk to them, I've never been able to understand that when a vendor, when they make a sale and the person's saying, charge me tax. If I'm a vendor, I'm all over that. It's like, boy, there's no argument here. We just collect the tax, send it on to the state, and there's no problem. What you could do if that's a real issue or something, have them call and ask us. You know, I'll put up our toll-free number and stuff here after a bit. They can get it straight from the Department of Revenue that they should be charging tax. I don't know why they wouldn't, unless they're an out-of-state company, maybe that's not registered.
Cash transactions.
Yeah, I would hope not. I don't know why they wouldn't charge you tax, especially when you told them to. Again, I think in that case, direct them to us. If you've talked to them, they don't agree with you, maybe direct them our way. We can tell them that they need to collect tax. Just because they don't charge you tax, if you bought something that is taxable, it's still on you, okay? You've still got to remit the proper use tax on that. You don't want to get in trouble later on down the road. So you don't get a freebie here just because they don't charge you tax. Okay, we're moving back here. Looks like Jody has a question. We're back to the retaining wall again. If you buy retaining wall stone in bulk and sell some retail to customers and some on the jobs building a wall, how do you handle that? Okay, yeah, very good question. From what you're telling me here, it sounds like you could be considered to be possibly a retailer contractor. If you we've got a publication for construction contractors that's got information in there. However, what this entails is you are in a dual type of business. You do some construction work, you build these retaining walls. Sounds like you also do some retail sales. If you do quite a bit of those things, what you can do is you can be a retailer contractor, which means you can buy your materials, your inventory, these stone and blocks and these types of things. You can place them in inventory for resale. So you can buy them tax exempt. And then when you do something with those materials, and by do something, I mean your customer comes in, they purchase them from you, that's a retail sale. You'll collect tax at that time. If you remove them from inventory to use in a job that you're going to put up this retaining wall, in that situation, you do owe us tax, and you would report your cost on the goods consumed line on the quarterly sales tax return. So if you're the person that does the filings, look on the quarterly return, line 2 is goods consumed, and you would just put in your cost of materials. You put it right into that line, and it'll flow through the return, and you'll remit tax that way. But you do owe tax on the ones that you purchased to use as a material for building a retaining wall. And in your other situation where you're selling some at retail to the customer and they're going to go build their own retaining wall, you'll collect sales tax in that situation. So excellent questions. Good job. One thing on here on the website that I wanted to stress as well, we've got email updates. You can subscribe to these. They don't cost a thing. I would recommend that you would at least subscribe to one of them. This is something, it's a free service. It's a good way of staying in touch with the department. I was at another presentation just earlier this morning, and it related to a topic for manufacturers. We had a law change on some things related to those folks July 1st of this year. And I told them, I said, hey, this is a good way to stay in touch. When there is a law change or something comes up, you'll receive an email automatically. It'll tell you about these things. So this is something I recommend to you. It's a good way to stay in touch with the department. There's various topics on here that you can subscribe to. As I've said before, if you've ever been to one of my webinars, I subscribe to all of them. Some of these things, they really don't apply to me, so I just hit delete. I would rather have the information and not need it than need the information and not have it. So this is just something that'll let you keep in touch with the department. I'm going to jump back here and take a couple of questions. When will iowatax.gov be updated with new rules as of July 1st, 2016, defining what is now exempt? I'm not sure specifically what you're talking about. We do have our legislative updates are on our website, and that does tell things of new legislation. There wasn't a huge amount of new legislation this year, but there is some information out there. If you're talking about manufacturing, we do have a publication for that is new as of July 1st. It is already on our website. We are currently in the rulemaking process. The rules are not finalized yet, but that rulemaking process is going on as we speak. So again, we'll have updates and things as they come out, but there is information out there on changes for tax law. Okay, I'm backing up here again. Just to confirm, is this correct? All hardscape, which would be pavers, walls, on old construction, we do not collect sales tax from the customer on labor and materials, but we do charge tax for plants and mulch around it, but not the labor to put them in the ground. Okay, I'm going to have to make sure I have my head wrapped around this here too. Hardscape. So, okay, I get that. Pavers, walls, those types of things. It sounds like construction. And you're saying on old construction, so that tells me this is your existing home or office building that's been constructed, but you're coming in and you're adding a patio, you're adding a retaining wall. If that's the case, again, building these hardscape things, I believe is how you're referring to them, like a retaining wall, you owe tax on cost of those materials to build that.
At the point of purchase. When
you purchase them, yep. Or it could be a use tax transaction if you bought these from out of state or something, but you do owe tax on them up front at the time of purchase. When you include that tax in your price to the customer, you collect no tax from the customer for labor and materials for building this retaining wall. But you are then also doing some other traditional landscape work, what I would call traditional landscape work. You're putting in a few plants and you're putting in some mulch and those types of things. You will collect tax on the plants and the mulch, assuming you itemized your materials out. And you will not charge tax on the labor in this situation. The reason for that is all of the retaining wall work is new construction, okay? No tax collected on that. If you do some this landscaping in connection with the new construction, the tax is only due on the landscape materials. It is not due on the labor, again, because it's connected with the construction of this new paver, this retaining wall. So good question. Okay, So we're back again here with the landscape issue, and I did the fancy backyard patio for $10,000. How do I report this sale on my quarterly sales tax return? I'm not a retailer. I paid tax on the materials, but I don't charge tax on the labor. This is new construction. Okay, Vicki, this is still a gross sale. You've got a sales tax return. Gross sales includes all sales. So you would put in there, in this example, $10,000 of gross sales. Since you constructed a patio for someone, this is not a taxable transaction, meaning you're not collecting any sales tax from the customer. So you've got a gross sale on line 1. On line 4, you've got an exemption for $10,000. This is going to lead you to a taxable amount of 0, and you have to put in the category of why it is exempt from tax. And I believe we still have a category under there for new construction. So even though no tax is going to be due in this case, it's still reported on the quarterly return. Alrighty, what are we doing here? We've got seeding going on a new construction site. This is the breakout for taxable and non-taxable for sales tax for labor and seed. Alrighty. You're doing some seeding on new construction. So again, labor would be exempt, assuming you're itemizing this. When it comes down to the seed, can you buy the seed tax exempt? Are you spelling it out on the invoice to the customer? Are you saying, hey, we've got 20 pounds of seed at $1.50 a pound? Is that itemized out to the customer? If so, you can buy that seed tax exempt. When you are doing this type of work, then you're only going to collect tax on the materials. Again, part of landscaping, part of this work that you're doing.
Even if you upcharge the seed to the client, right? Especially if you upcharge.
In this system, definitely. This is a sales tax. This is tax would be due on the sale price, so to speak.
Yep.
Let's see here. Currently putting together a refund request for a tax refund. What information do you need to be sent in? Okay. Sounds like you're doing an IA 843, which is a claim for refund. You've got to send in any documentation. You've also got to say why you're exempt from tax. You're going to have to describe that. This is the circumstances. I am exempt from tax because resale, something I paid tax I shouldn't have for some reason. You've also got to send invoices. Hey, I paid tax on this item I should not have. Here's my invoice that shows I did pay tax on this item. So put as much information in there as you can. If when the examiners take a look at that, because they're going to, if you send in a claim for refund, they just don't cut you a check. They're going to look at it and they're going to make sure you are in fact entitled to that refund. And on occasion, if there's something they don't understand, maybe they can't make heads or tails of something, they're gonna request more information. They may call you or send a letter and say, hey, wait a minute, explain this to me. So put as much information as you can in there. Again, tell why you're claiming to be exempt. Why are you to receive a refund? There's got to be a reason why you're claiming to be exempt. Alrighty. Looks like we're getting up here on the time. I've got another question here. How do you handle materials used for snow removal? For example, salt and sand. Okay, good question, Jennifer. The snow's going to be flying here before we know it.
Don't say that.
In this situation, I said that snow removal services are not taxable. They are not. However, there can be tax due if you charge for sand, salt, those types of things. If there is a sale of tangible personal property occurring, and this is spelled out on the invoice, we're going to tax those materials. You can buy materials tax exempt for resale if you are itemizing them out to the customer with a definable price and quantity. If you did my parking lot at the office that I work in, and I am a taxable customer, and you said, hey, I spread 350 pounds of salt times X amount of dollars per pound, okay? And then I charged you another $500 labor. I'm just throwing figures out here. In that situation, tax would be due on just the salt in this example. Again, snow removal labor, not taxable, but the sale of tangible personal property is. Now, if you just invoice the customer and you just say, yeah, took care of your parking lot for you, and that includes everything. That includes pushing the snow out of there. It includes putting some salt or sand down, but you just give me a lump sum invoice that says snow removal. There is no sales tax due on that invoice. However, any materials that you purchased, you had to pay tax on them. You cannot buy materials tax exempt for resale in this situation because you're not itemizing it out to the customer. So hopefully that clarifies things for you. We are past our time now, so I've got a couple more slides just to go through, and then we're going to have to wrap it up here for today. Good questions. I really appreciate it. Just for your information as well, Iowa Department of Revenue, we are on Twitter. This is another way to keep in touch with the Department of Revenue. We're trying to put information out there on social media so you can stay in touch with the department on things. Facebook. Does anybody follow us on Facebook? If not, please do. We need more friends. I know that might be hard to believe, but we don't have a lot of friends on Facebook.
That is hard to believe.
So by all means, if you are a Facebook person, follow us on Facebook. We put information out there at least every working day of the month, and the same goes for Twitter as well. We try to put some information out there every working day of the month. On occasion, we put something else out there if it warrants. That's just another way of staying in touch with the department. More information, we do have a publication specifically for lawn care and landscaping issues. You can find that on our website. If you're still confused with all this, give us a call. We have people on the phones 8 to 4:15 Monday through Friday. Give us a call. We'll talk you through it. If you've got an issue, and I think we had an issue or two that I couldn't quite cover here today, shoot an email over. idr@iowa.gov. Put down your information, and we'll respond to you. Chances are, if it's related to sales tax, I'm one of the folks that responds to those. So it very well could be I'll be the person that responds. If you want to send it to me, just send it to that address and say, "Hey, attention Terry," and I'll get it, and we'll get you an answer out as soon as we can. As always, just a reminder: protect yourself from identity theft. Be careful. The Department of Revenue is never going to ask you for your full Social Security number by email or regular mail. That's not something we do. We don't look for personal information from you. So just be careful. There's a lot of scammers out there. We have people that contact us, and they'll say, "Hey, I just was contacted by the Department of Revenue. They wanted all this information from me." And no, we do not do that. The agency does not ask for your Social Security number by email, or we don't send you a letter saying put your Social Security number down and mail it back. So be careful. If you're ever not sure, call us or email us. We'll tell you if such and such works there. I know I've responded to many of them over the years. They'll say, "Hey, I've got Joe Smith here is saying he's auditing my records. Is this legitimate?" And I can say, "Yep, Joe Smith does work here. He's an examiner. He's working on things." So just be careful. Better safe than sorry. Reminder to everybody as well, the purpose of this is just to provide some general information to you. If you're being audited or you're involved in a protest, I'm not here to get in the middle of that. You've got to deal with the contact with the department that you're working with on the audit or protest. This is outside of that. So again, this is just general information we're trying to get to you here. Evaluations and things. Is there any comments, Dan? Is there a place that they click on to put comments or anything?
I think they might get an emailed survey after the fact.
Okay.
Try to follow up with the slides. I think that's what I wanted to mention there. Also, our next webinar, I'll just take the time right now to mention that, is coming up on September 21st. Do you have the topic?
I believe that one, the topic I believe is some income tax updates.
Okay.
I think there might be a little bit on, I think NOLs possibly. I'm not involved in that one. You're going to have probably Patty Fulton and Jennifer Breeden from the department are going to be involved in that one. But that's more income tax issues. That is not going to be a sales tax presentation.
September 21st at noon for that.
Mm-hmm.
Again, here on iasourcelink.com. This is IA SourceLink is a partnership between the University of Northern Iowa's Center for Business Growth and Innovation and the Iowa Department of Economic Development. So we or I'm sorry, the Iowa
Department of Revenue.
Yes, the Department of Revenue, and also the Department of Economic Development helps us out with SourceLink tremendously. They're a great partner for this programming, and so we appreciate their help and support with this as well.
Okay. Well, thank everyone for attending. Good turnout today. Good questions as well. Send us more questions if you have them, and we'll do what we can to provide an answer for you. So thank you very much, and everybody have a great afternoon. And if I can get over here.